Hello, everyone. This is Sanjay Srivastava, and I'm the President and CEO of Vocareum. Hopefully, you guys can hear me. So hopefully someone let me know if there's an issue with audio. But I'm going to go ahead and get started with the webinar. We're going to talk about our notebooks for learning AI. We're pretty excited about launching our product today. So just a really quick overview of the agenda. I'm going to talk about Vocareum. So for those of you who might not be familiar with Vocareum, I'm just going to go ahead and give you an overview. I'll talk about for 15 minutes and hopefully set up what you will be doing a demo of. And then Peter Kim from our engineering team will do a demo of our AI lab, which should take 20 to 25 minutes. And then we'll open it up for Q&A for 20 minutes. Just one, again, housekeeping item that there are quite a few of us on the webinar today. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask it in the Q&A section, and hopefully someone will respond to it live. And and also to show our appreciation for you being here, when we start the Q&A section, we'll do a little raffle, and we'll draw a name for a gift basket that we'll send to you. I still don't know what is in it, but hopefully some good stuff. So with that, let me go ahead and get started. So our mission is to deliver labs for learning AI, cloud data, and cloud skills. And what do we mean by labs? It's a fully contained space which will give everything for the learner to go ahead and get started with skilling, as well as for the instructors to be able to assess the work. So we deliver these labs through essentially 3 core products. One of them is Vocareum Notebook for Learning AI. This is something we'll be talking about today. And the second one, which we have been deployed for, to more than 1 million learners worldwide, is our cloud labs. So these are managed labs for learning AWS, Azure, and GCP. These labs essentially let the learners work in a fairly safe environment and learn how to deploy cloud resources. And then our labs for learning data science, programming, and data engineering. So typically these labs are delivered as a VS Code environment, as a Jupyter Notebook environment, or most recently our Databricks environment. This is something we are pretty excited about. We launched our partnership with Databricks pretty recently, and one of the courses which we deployed via edX, which is LLM using Databricks, and we are providing the labs for that. So these are essentially, it covers all the labs that we are providing. So what do we mean by labs? I mean, once again, the core capability of the labs, the first one which we really focused on is deliver the right level of abstraction. And what we mean by that is that, when you want to learn, for example, coding, and let's say you do not want to be distracted by having to install tools or maybe even having to learn Unix or terminal, we can drop you right in an environment where you can start coding or get the feedback. Or let's say if you're learning cloud computing to get ready for AWS certification, we'll drop you fairly quickly, hopefully with 1 or 2 clicks, into an environment where you can start working on in a secure managed AWS environment. The second thing is budget management. This is pretty crucial. A lot of these, if you're not careful about it, a lot of these resources which you need to learn, let's say cloud computing skill or big data skills, the cost can blow up. So we manage the budget. So for example, an instructor can specify that there's a $30 of cloud resources that you get, and we help manage that. Rich suite of assessment option. That's another fairly substantial value where especially if you're teaching this at scale, then you can deploy lots of assessment strategy. One of the big ones is auto grading. So as soon as the learner submits their work, you can you can run some grading scripts and provide immediate feedback. And the other assessment option that we'll talk about a little bit later. Something else which we realized from day one is that these labs do not exist in isolation. They need to exist in the context of the full learner experience. So we have invested a lot of energy to make sure that these labs are integrated well into your instructional environment. It could be very often it could be an LMS like Canvas, Desire to Learn, or say Blackboard. Persistent work area. Most of these labs, typically you cannot finish in one session. So when the learner comes back, they should be able to work basically where they left off. So all of our labs are persistent work area. Ability to deliver large data sets, that's becoming bigger and bigger deal, that maybe you want to deliver tens of gigabytes of data to the learner. So you have to be able to deliver it efficiently. And this is once again a key feature that we have been focusing on. And the learner analytics. So for example, there are some analytics that we provide as a part of our platform, but also if you're delivering, if you have your own analytics engine, we can deliver fairly detailed learner data to your data warehouse through what we call a data pipeline. So, and once again, these capabilities are common to all of our labs, regardless of which lab it is, AI lab or data science or cloud computing. So even though today might not be talking about some of these functions, but for example, in our AI lab, you can still do auto grading, or you'll get the work area would be persistent, and you'll get analytics. So the assessment options, a little bit more detail about what are the assessment options that are available. One of them is auto grading. That tends to be a really big deal, especially for large classes or for classes, let's say maybe on a MOOC, which are delivered at scale, maybe thousands of learners are taking a class. So provide the feedback, the only real option is to do auto grading, and we have a pretty sophisticated infrastructure to support that. Manual grading, for our academic environments, often maybe a team of graders will go in and actually provide manual feedback. So we have infrastructure to help, for example, distribute the student submission to a set of graders, built-in plagiarism detection. So for our Jupyter notebooks, as well as our code, you can do a very quick plagiarism check. Inline comments. So once again, you can provide inline feedback to a Jupyter notebook or to let's say a Python code to the learner. Peer reviews, another feature functionality which is actually used quite a bit. And one of the things nice about our peer reviews that peers can not only see each other's work, but they can even execute it as a part. So they get basically a sandbox with a copy of their peers' work, which they can execute it and use it to provide feedback. Leaderboard, this is once again a feature which is used for our machine learning classes, where you can give everyone, let's say, a data set to train the model on, but you can have a hidden data set on which you can measure the performance of the learners' models, and then you can place them anonymously in a leaderboard. So there's actually a Cornell case study on our website which talks about how the learners, 500 learners, they submitted their assignment 60,000 times to improve their position on the leaderboard. And multiple choice, this is the latest thing which we have implemented just for the sake of completeness. So we do deliver it at scale. So I think we took this number about 6 months ago. We had 2.5 million learners which have gone through our platform. This year we expect more than 1 million unique learners will use one of our labs. Once again, this was data from 6 months ago. There are about 12,000 live courses, another 125,000 cloud labs which would started. I'm sure the number is bigger right now. So we do deliver these at scale. We have partner, and we do this in partnership with our learning platforms. So for example, we provide cloud computing labs to Udemy or Udacity. And as I was mentioning earlier on, that edX, we just launched the Databricks lab, a course with edX. Same thing about AWS. We are very, very proud of our partnership with AWS education groups, where we are the lab provider for AWS Academy, AWS Educate, and AWS Restart programs. And the right-hand side speaks to what I was mentioning earlier on, that we have integration with, this is a key focus of the company, to make sure that labs are nicely integrated regardless of what learning environment the learner is working in. It could be one of the LMSs or could be a proprietary UI. We are there in right now 6,000 universities. A lot of them because of partnership, and a few hundred of them we have direct relationships. And these labs are deployed in different learning modalities. So as I mentioned, that there are quite a few self-paced certificate on, let's say, a platform like edX, degree programs. So these are so often it is a data science program, or maybe a coding class where in a university we are being used for in the part of degree program. Boot camps and ILTs are more and more we are seeing more and more. For example, boot camps at Full Stack Academy or Simply Learn, they use our platforms. And high stakes exams. So this became a bigger and bigger focus during pandemic days, where all the exams were being delivered through virtually. So we had to implement a lot of features to make sure that this can be done with high integrity, which means integration with proctoring services, some specific control around virtual exams. And we do have a rich set of REST API, which can be used for integrating with your maybe a tool, or maybe very often it is used for content integration. So maybe you are managing your content in a Git repo, and you can use a REST CI/CD pipeline using a REST API to update the content on our platform. So now about the demo today. So we are going to be talking about fully managed labs for AI. And so when the whole generative AI explosion happened, a lot of companies were focused on using how can they use AI to improve their delivery. For us, our first focus has been, how do we build labs so that everyone can quickly learn the skills that they need to learn. So the three things that we are going to be talking about, I think we are showing the first two, is prompt engineering. So in this case, maybe you don't need to learn coding, but you might need to learn how prompt engineering. So there's a lab specifically for that. And in that case, we'll show it using OpenAI token. Or you might need to train or fine-tune a model using GPUs. And the third one is, I don't think we have a demo for that, but as you can imagine, using the infrastructure that we have, we can deliver fine-tuned model using API. And specifically, we are talking about using OpenAI APIs. So what problem are we really solving with today, our AI labs? I just want to, so one of the biggest things that we are hearing is that now the learners need to be delivered two key resources. One is GPUs, access to GPUs, and access to OpenAI tokens. And for learners, they do not need to create their OpenAI account to provision GPU resources. So one of the things that you're hearing from a partner, that a lot of times learners don't have access to, for example, even a credit card to be able to even create an OpenAI account. And for GPUs, if you want to use your own GPUs, then often it can be fairly complicated. So it goes back to the whole point about abstraction. If you want to learn how to train a model, ideally you want to get going with it rather than have to worry about how do I provision and how do I send the job to it. So what you will see that in our demo, that with a single click, the learner can send the job to a GPU and get the training done. And for the instructors, once again, if you're going to provide, let's say, OpenAI credits or GPU, then you need to be able to make sure that the budget is contained. So you can, for all these labs, you can say, and once again, hopefully it'll become clear in our demos that, okay, you get $2 worth of OpenAI or 5 hours of GPU to solve this problem. And then we worry a lot more to make sure that you use the most cost-effective GPU. So in our configuration, you should be able to set not only what machine you're using, but for example, can you use spot pricing? You can specify the spot pricing. So we'll go out there, bid on the GPU for that price. And then you can set up scaling policies. Then once again, the benefit for both instructors and learners is that the environment does come pre-configured with all the popular like AI frameworks and packages. But at the same time, you can customize it by adding, these are basically Docker images. which for your own assignment, you can very quickly, you can install a package and then basically create a new image with a couple of clicks. And then last part is obviously worrying about the cost explosion. So there's no, you don't have to worry about it. Someone left a GPU resource running and suddenly, you have tens of thousands of dollars of GPU bill. So here are the problems that we are trying to solve, and hopefully it become clear as we go into our demo. And then about roadmaps. So what we will be showing today, OpenAI for our, for prompt engineering, and also US West right now an AWS resource for provisioning GPUs. But we want to support more and more training targets like Lambda Labs, Foundry, Azure, GCP, etc. And then we will want to support more deployment targets. So once you once you build a model, where do you deploy and how do you share it? So right now you'll see our custom environment for that, but we want to be fairly open about making sure that we stay ahead with what's the latest and greatest. So with that, what I will do is I'll pass this on to Peter for the demo. So Peter, hopefully you can take it away now.
Yeah, let me share my screen. Can everyone see what I'm sharing?
Yes, I can see it, Peter.
Great. So, hi everybody. My name is Peter, and I'm a senior engineer here at Vocareum. I'm really excited today to show you the latest of many lab types that are being developed by us, what we are calling the Vocareum Notebook. The Vocareum Notebook is our completely custom, built from the ground up IDE specifically designed to enhance the experience of learning AI. Generative AI has taken the world by storm, and the demand for learning about it has never been greater. However, we all know that properly training or using a model does not come cheap, and one of the roadblocks for teaching anything ML AI related has been provisioning and managing GPU resources for the learner. Well, I am happy to announce that with Vocareum Notebook, we are solving this issue by introducing both OpenAI and GPU budgets. In this demo, I'll be showing you how these work, as well as some of the other awesome features that are coming with Vocareum Notebook. Before we begin, however, I will mention that everything you're about to see is in beta and is subject to change before release. However, Vocareum Notebook will be shipping as part of our next monthly release, so you won't have to wait long if you want to try it for yourself. With that said, let's start by seeing what the experience is like from the learner's point of view. So the first notebook that I have here is for prompt engineering, and this will be demonstrating our OpenAI integration. In the assignment settings, the teacher can enable and set a budget for OpenAI usage. We will go over how to do those things after the learner experience portion. In this example, I have set the budget to $2, which you can quickly see at a glance in the bottom left-hand corner. If a budget has been enabled, then every learner that uses the Vocareum Notebook will automatically have a Vocareum managed OpenAI API key assigned to them, which they can use to access within the IDE. This key can then be used with our Vocareum API endpoint, which will then forward the request directly to OpenAI. So first, we're going to load the required packages as well as the API key and base. I will point out that it's not mandatory to use Vocareum's key and base here. And the learner is free to use their own OpenAI key as well as the regular base URL if they wish. With that said, using our budgeted API key is not restricted to only within the Vocareum platform. Users can use the API from anywhere in the internet. The Vocareum managed API key is stored as an environment variable within the Jupyter kernel, but the user can also see the full key by clicking on the OpenAI icon in the corner. Doing so will bring up this panel, which is where the learner can also see additional details about their budget. The key being right here. We will have to disable this key after the demo, everybody. So the first method is, okay, so in this example, we're going to use the following helper function that feeds a prompt to GPT 3.5 Turbo and prints its response. Now, let's look at two primary ways a user can use their budgeted key to send prompts to OpenAI. Taking the following example problem. You are a travel blogger exploring a new city. write a blog post about your experiences, including details about the city's landmarks, local cuisine, and unique cultural aspects. With this prompt, you can experiment with different variations to see how the model responds to changes in phrasing, additional instructions, or specific requests for information. And then we have 3 prompt variations here. So we have 2 primary methods to interact with OpenAI. The first and most obvious is to use the OpenAI package using the helper function that we created above. So let's send the first prompt variation using our budgeted API key and see what happens. So this output is the same as if we had just asked ChatGPT directly. And you can see here that the budget was updated immediately using the token cost of the exchange, converted into dollars, and then subtracted from the total budget. In the near future, we're also going to be adding a history table of inputs, outputs, and token costs so that the learner can keep track of their usage. Second method is to use what we call the prompt cell type. The cell type is a Vocareum Notebook exclusive. And because Vocareum Notebook renders everything natively, we're able to create powerful custom cell types that you wouldn't find in a regular Jupyter Notebook. To enable this cell type, you simply have to select it, just like if it was a code or a markdown type. And once created, it asks the user for a prompt, which it will then send to OpenAI using the budgeted API key. So we're going to send the same prompt as the one above. You can see the response that we got. So this chatbot-like cell allows the learner to converse with OpenAI at any time without needing to even import the OpenAI model or have the kernel running. I really want to stress that you don't need to know coding in order to harness the power of these prompt cells. All you need to know is how to write a good prompt, which, as you can see in this example, Vocareum Notebook can be great at teaching. I'm going to move on to our second example, which will demonstrate our GPU integration. So once again, in the bottom corner, you can see our assigned GPU budget, which is 30 minutes for this assignment. So there are 2 notebooks that I'll be showing off. The first is going to download and train a GPT-2 model. As we know, training and tuning a model can take a very long time depending on the size of the data set and model being used, to the point where it would be infeasible to do so on the CPU. However, with Vocareum Notebook, we are introducing the ability to send training jobs to a separate GPU machine, which will run the notebook, execute all the cells, and save the notebook with its outputs as a separate copy. That's what I did earlier by clicking on the Start Training button here. For the sake of time in this demo, we're only going to be training our model with a single line of data. However, this notebook will take the entire GPT-2 model and save it to the work area so that it can be imported and used with our second notebook. So as we can see here, the training was successfully completed. And once again, the GPU budget was updated immediately as soon as the training finished. So let's take a look at the file tree. So what was created through the training was this directory, batch executions. And here we can see the results of the executed notebook. So as we can confirm here, all of the cells have been executed. And at the bottom, we can confirm that this notebook was indeed run on a GPU machine, 16 gigabytes. And the model has been saved to the work area, like I described. So now let's open our second notebook, which will actually test the model. So with our model ready to go, we can test it out by asking it some prompts. So once again, we're using a helper function that will take the output and then we're going to be printing that out. So here we can see that the prompt was completed. And this is just to show that for the notebooks in the IDE, we are using the CPU, so there was no GPU available for running this notebook. One feature that we are currently working on is adding an option to the prompt cell that I discussed in the OpenAI example, that where you can specify the model as well as the function to send a prompt to. Model deployment and sharing will be our focus after the initial release of Vocareum Notebook. So this concludes the learner experience section of the demo. I'll briefly show how to enable these budget features as an instructor now. So to enable the budgets, simply go into the part settings for the assignment. Make sure that you have Vocareum Notebook selected as the lab type. And under resources, you'll see a couple options. You can enable GPU or OpenAI. Doing so will then enable the relevant option in the budget section. And here you can set the budgets for each user. As Sanjay briefly mentioned, for organizations that might want to have fine-tuned control over their GPUs, we do offer the ability to create and set your own scaling policies for GPU machines, and then we would pass the bill forward onto them. What we have is this is our UI. We have a ton of different options as well as parameters that you can use to really fine tune and minimize cost. Like Sanjay mentioned, you can use spot instances, you can select the instance type, a lot of options here for orgs that want to have their own custom machines to run these jobs on. That concludes my demo. I think we're going to open it up to a Q&A section now. And let's send it back to you, Sanjay.
Yeah. So I will, definitely. Please ask me a question. I saw there's a question. There is a Vocareum Jupyter notebook using Jupyter Lab. Actually, no, it is not. It is a fully custom, implementation, and we just eventually realized to give a really powerful experience in terms of all the budget controls and lots of different assessment capabilities. It was best to just develop it from ground up. Although, it'd be pretty simple if the student does want to launch Jupyter Lab or Jupyter Notebook, will be able to give them the ability to do that. It's just that you will not get all the capability. Pat said, I'm not familiar with the OpenAI business model. They charge to send requests via API. That's correct, Pat. So what happens is that that when you get the response back from OpenAI, they will actually tell you that how many tokens they process. So that's one thing for chat completion, is basically how many tokens you process. For other functions like their model training and all that, they're different business models. Someone else might be more familiar with it. So so you have to take all that and from the response and then compute how much they were going to charge.